Well, a question. Your spiritual you isn't confined to the material body, is it? Be honest with yourself now. When you say I, where do you put it? Here in the chest? Here in the head? Here in the hands? Now show me. Place it. Fix it. When I say I, how are you going to localize that? Now, where am I? Am I here or here or here? No. I am not in the physical. No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. They have found a heart, a liver, a brain. And dear friends, when those have been thoroughly examined, they have still not found the one who says I. Then why should fear fasten upon what the senses can touch when the eye cannot be touched? Fear takes its premise from a first mistake, that life is in a body, and so life can be taken from a body. But if the eye is not within the body, if life is not a deposit to be withdrawn from flesh, then what is threatened when flesh changes? Death does not end. Life, death ends a belief about location and identity. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. That is scripture. That is not poetry. That is law. And in the instant you admit this possibility, not as a bravado, not as a creed, but as a quiet question, the cords of fear begin to loose. Why? Because what fear guards is an address, and the eye has never had an address. Consider this with me. If I were to say, I am in this room, am I telling the truth of I or of a set of walls? The walls can be measured. The room can be left, but you cannot leave what you were never in. You can only leave a belief about where you are. We have wept at graves and called it departure. But what departed? Thought withdrew from one focus and found another. Presence never departed itself. I and my Father are one, not someday, not somewhere, but I am. Identity is not location. Identity is union. And if identity is union, the threat to location cannot reach it. I say this not to argue with your grief, not to dismiss your love, but to lift the veil on the first premise so that love may breathe without terror. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor. I cannot hand you safety in a body. I can witness with you that safety is not in a body. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Hear it within, not as a charm, but as a recognition. Sufficiency is of God, not of breath nor blood. When the mind turns from pinning I to here, or here, or here, it begins to sense a presence that neither arrives nor departs. And in that sensing, fear, having lost its object, quietly loses its voice. Let us be plain and unhurried with this. I am not in the physical. I am not in the physical. You may touch a hand. You may see a face, but you cannot lay a finger upon the one who says I. No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. They have opened skulls and measured pulses and studied nerves, but the witness, the awareness, the life that says I eludes their instruments because it is not in the cage they are examining. In him we live and move and have our being. That is not man in God as bird in cage. That is God as the very being of man. The body is within this awareness as a sight appears upon the eye, not the eye within the sight. When I say consciousness, I do not mean brain waves. The brain, like the hand and like the street you walk on, appears within consciousness. Consciousness is not resident in flesh. Flesh is resident briefly, beautifully in consciousness. As the image on a screen is not the electricity that powers it, So your body is not the life that animates you. If then the I is not located in a body, what is this talk of leaving the body? You cannot leave what you were never in. You can only leave a belief about where you are. And that, dear friends, is what death is to most of the world. The end of a mistaken belief about location and identity. To be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord is the reframing, the translation, the shift of focus from container to content, from form to presence. Do not make a sensation out of this. I did not consciously project myself, and I hope you will never try to do it. Non-locality is realization, not travel. The I, that is God's own offspring, does not commute from room to room or realm to realm like a tourist. It does not send out tendrils or leave a trail. It rests in its source. When testimonies arise, letters telling of a presence felt across oceans, a peace descending in a hospital room, understand this. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. I have studiously avoided mental and physical contacts, for we are not to tamper with spiritual law to satisfy curiosity. The kingdom of God is within you, and the within is not a geography. It is a state of realized oneness. Therefore, if fear whispers, you may be forced to leave. Answer quietly. Leave what? An address in time? A costume of cells? No, no. I am not in the physical. Identity is I am, and I am is union. In the measure that this is accepted, not argued, but yielded to, a certain hush comes over the mind, and belief loosens of itself. Not bravado, not denial, a simple returning. Be still and know that I am God. In my conscious oneness with God, the belief of inness fades, and only presence remains. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Now let us take the step that removes even the shadow of the old premise. Not I am in, but I am. I and my Father are one. Hear that not as poetry, not as a prophecy, but as identity. I am is not a resident. I am is presence. Before Abraham was, I am. Not born, not dying, not traveling, not confined. I am the life that is never born and never dies. If you seek to put that I inside of a span of years, you have fashioned for yourself another God time as a creator, time as a destroyer, and you will fear your own image. No, thou shalt have no other gods before me, not body, not lifespan, not health, not fear, not the opinions of the crowd, not the report of the senses. Me, one. Now watch how law operates. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. That is not my will reaching out. That is not personal mind collecting, arranging, manipulating. That is law. As surely as 2 times 2 is 4 and remains 4, whether or not you agree with it, so oneness remains oneness, whether you feel holy or dull. When there is a yielding, just the yielding, the circuit closes, and what I can only call the click arrives. It is quiet. It is unforced. It is not a thrill. It is not a vision you can frame. It is the recognition that the I, which says I, is the very life of all that is real. And in that recognition, fear has no premise because division has no premise. Perfect love casteth out fear, not by argument, but by being what it is, one. Please understand what this means for our activity. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. I do not act upon God. I do not act upon people. I do not attempt to make a condition change. I rest and I let the Father within do the works. If a word comes, it is his word. If a silence comes, it is his silence. If peace descends in another place, let no one say, I sent it. I did not. Presence is omnipresence. The instrument bears witness. The actor performs. In that order and in that humility, the law functions without obstruction. Ethically, this is the first commandment walking in our midst. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. To bow to body as self is to craft an idol and kneel to a shadow. To worship longevity is to fear the clock. To exalt health is to fear sickness. To enthrone fear itself as if it were a power is to deny the one. Return worship to the one, and the fragments lose their borrowed authority. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and thy neighbor as thyself. Why neighbor as thyself? Because in oneness there is no other. So, when the click comes, it is simply this, a release from in into I am. Be still, and know not think. Know that I am God being all. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. Fear cannot stand in a room that has no corners. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And I rest there until there is nothing to defend, nothing to acquire, nothing to fear, only one. Let us make this very simple, very natural. It will be a chair low enough that the body can let go without slumping. Sit so that the feet find the floor without strain. Keep the back supported but not propped stiff, as if you were guarding something. Let the hands rest lightly, not gripping, not folded as a defense, hands and arms relaxed. Never rest your arms in a way that keeps you conscious of having arms. The point is comfort, not posture pride. Close the eyes gently. There is no occult reason for closing the eyes, only the mercy of removing surfaces from attention. We are not creating a condition. We are ceasing to fuss with one. Now the intention, remove the body from thought, not by force, not by pushing, not by hating, simply by indifference. As you would let a radio play unnoticed in the next room, let the body be. In this position with the eyes closed, become virtually unaware of having a body. If a knee speaks, let it speak and pass. If an itch whispers, acknowledge and let it be. You are not resisting. You are not serving. Take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body. Take no thought for a moment means allow awareness to be itself without management. Be still and know. The stillness is not an achievement. It is a ceasing to meddle. Then the waiting not as one who begs, not as one who barters, not as one who watches the clock. There is no request. There is no list. There is no bargaining with tomorrow. I wait in a state of receptivity until the click comes. If it is a minute, it is a minute. If it is 50 seconds, it is 50 seconds. If it does not come, we have not failed. For even the desirelessness is prayer. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. This is not a trance. This is not self-hypnosis. This is a surrendered awareness resting in its source. Understand the guardrails. I never give human advice. I do not tell you to do this or that with your business, your family, your health. I never manipulate mind or matter. Don't ever tamper with a cosmic law because it is a double-edged sword. When used for personal advantage, it turns upon the user. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Let the Father within do the works. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. The moment I try to act upon a person, a thing, or a condition, I have placed another God before me and have stepped out of law. If a word is needed to ease the mind into quiet, let it be this password, spoken once or twice, and then laid down like a key upon a table. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Then silence. No embroidery, no pushing, merely the hush in which presence is presence. Here, without the body and thought, and without the mind and desire, the divine flow acts. It acts as peace uncaused. It acts as clarity unargued. It acts as love without object. And because there is nothing to defend, nothing to acquire, nothing to fear, fear finds no foothold. When the click comes, it is only the recognition of what has always been true. I and my Father are one. And even when it does not come as a felt moment, the law abides, and you rise from the chair lighter, not because a condition changed, but because you ceased trying to be a power. Be still and know, thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Now let us look straight at the word that has frightened the world and speak the truth to it. Death, to most, is an event, something that happens to life, something that removes life from a location called the body. That is the error. Death is not an event in life. Death is a conclusion drawn from a mistaken premise about location. If you assume life sits inside a box of atoms, then when the box changes, you will cry. Life is gone. But if the I is not in the physical, if no surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body, then what is it that could depart? You cannot leave what you were never in. You can only leave a belief about where you are. Therefore, hear it and let it settle. Death ends a belief, not life. Death ends a belief, not life. Let it repeat in you until it wipes the fog from the window. Scripture has already given you this translation, absent from the body and present with the Lord. This is not a travelogue. This is realization, not relocation. Presence is not miles away. Presence is presence. Whither shall I flee from thy presence, says the psalm. There is no elsewhere for God, and there is no elsewhere for the offspring of God. I am the resurrection and the life. Not I will be somewhere later if certain conditions occur. When a lamp goes dark, do you hold a funeral for electricity? The current abides. Only a filament has ceased to serve as a witness. So too, when form changes or ceases to present, the life it seemed to display is not less. I and my Father are one. Identity is union, not location. Do not mistake this for license to meddle. I never give human advice. I do not urge you to prolong form, nor do I bid you shorten it. Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Don't ever tamper with a cosmic law, because it is a double-edged sword. Used for personal ends, it turns upon the user. As you sow, so shall ye reap. We neither tempt death nor cling to form. We consent to life's governance without interference. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. Let the Father within do the works. We are not to force a transition, and we are not to hold one back. We are to rest, to listen, to be still, and to allow the impersonal law of one to be itself. And here is the gentleness. Whenever the belief in body life ends now, in holy quiet, or at the so-called moment called death, what remains is I am, the awareness of God as God being itself. If you taste this now, if even for a breath you abide, absent from the body and thought and present with the Lord, fear is already finished because there is nothing left to lose. Perfect love casteth out fear, not by argument, but by being one. In my conscious oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. When the click comes, it merely confirms what has always been true. Presence remains. When it does not come, presence remains. So let the heart breathe this refrain until it becomes your inner climate. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Be still and know what dies is the body belief. What remains is presence, and presence is I am. Let us be very clear about law. A cosmic law is not sentimental. It is not bribed by tears or angered by defiance. It is as impersonal as 2 times 2 is 4. You can argue with it, you can deny it, you can believe it to be 5. But when you build a bridge on 5, the bridge will fall and you will not be punished. You will be corrected by the nature of the principle you ignored. It is the same with a traffic law. Drive on the wrong side of the road and there is no moral policeman in the sky cursing you. The collision is built into the violation. As you sow, so shall ye reap. Not as God decides to favor or withhold, but as law manifests itself through consciousness. When we sow separation, we reap fear. When we sow oneness, we reap peace. This is not reward. This is sequence. Now, where does fear, especially fear of death, take its nourishment? From worship. We have adored affects body, time, reputation, money, success, and then bled ourselves to protect our altars. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. When form is our God, every rumor of change becomes a threat. When time is our God, every hour is an enemy. When reputation is our God, every whisper is a sword. We have called these prudence. In truth, they are idolatry. And idols always demand sacrifice, sleep, joy, kindness, even honesty until the idol is fed. No, no. Return worship to one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. In the degree that one is God, forms fall into place as servants, not masters, and fear having lost its altar starves. The 2 great commandments are the safety rails of this law. Thou shalt have no other gods but one, and love thy neighbor as thyself. There can be no selfish purpose in a cosmic law. You violate 2 times 2 is 4 to line your own pocket, and the books will not balance. The wrath you meet is arithmetic. You violate the law of love to capture advantage. And what returns is not advantage, but the recoil of division. Don't ever tamper with a cosmic law because it is a double-edged sword. When you use it for a destructive or selfish end, it turns upon the user. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. I hope you will never try to bend prayer to make a person do your will, or to hold a form to please your fear. I have studiously avoided mental and physical contacts. I never give human advice. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. Our part is not to employ law, but to align with it. How then do we align? Seek first the kingdom, seek God alone, not things, and all these things are added as byproduct, not as booty. When worship returns to one, the very law that once seemed to feed fear now flowers as peace. Sow silence, reap clarity. Sow forgiveness, reap freedom. Sow non-interference, reap protection. In my conscious oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And as that grace is all, fear finds nothing to drink, nothing to breathe, nothing to clutch, and quietly, it is finished. Let us be practical now, not theoretical. If identity is union and not location, if law is one, there must be some witness in life, not a show, not a sensation, but a quiet evidence. And there is, again and again, letters come, not asking to be paraded, but to say, it happened. A student writes from across an ocean. Last night, at the kitchen sink, the fear that had gripped my chest for weeks let go. No cause, no argument. It was as if an unseen hand lifted a weight I could not lift. I stood there with the water running and there were no words in my head, only stillness. I was not doing a method. I was not repeating any formula. I knew nothing except peace. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth. What was this? Not suggestion, not projection, not a mind here sending a thought there. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I am merely the instrument. On my side, there had been only the daily practice of receptivity, the refusal to employ law for outcome, the simple resting in I am until the click. At some hour hers or mine is unimportant. The same presence that is omnipresence bore witness to itself, and fear, having lost its altar, starved. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh. So is every one that is born of the Spirit. Not noise, not fireworks, a dawning. Another writes from a hospital corridor. I sat alone between doors that opened and closed all night. I did not pray for a result. I said once, Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And then I was empty. After a while, I cannot say how long the corridor was the same, the doors the same, but I was not the same. A hush came that did not depend on good news or bad. I went in and out of that hush all night, and I slept later as if on a quiet river. No technique, only presence. The body was not touched. The mind was not manipulated. Yet the tyranny of circumstance broke. Be still and know that I am God. Do not make a sensation of this. I did not consciously project myself, and I hope you will never try to do it. We do not send thought. We do not use power. We cease from method and let the inner law bear witness to itself. I have studiously avoided mental and physical contacts. I never give human advice. To turn these evidences into a promise of outcomes is to enthrone a new idol and to invite the double-edged sword of law upon our own fingers. Testimony is not to guarantee an event. Testimony is to encourage the seeking of God alone. Therefore, the most trustworthy evidence is precisely this: the quiet dawning of peace without human manipulation. Not because someone did something to someone else, not because matter yielded to mind, but because oneness revealed what oneness always is. In my conscious oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. And that peace, arriving without cause, is the sign that cause is God. Let us bring this into the hours, into the kitchen sink and the office chair and the bedside lamp. A daily rhythm, no strain in it, no promise to keep God on a leash, only 3 honest pauses. Morning, before the world's reports begin. Noon, when activity is loud. Evening, when the day is laying itself down. Sit as before, comfortable, supported, hands at rest, eyes gently closed, and remove the body from thought. Whisper once or twice, "Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things," and then wait. No asking, no bargaining. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and leave the adding to the law. 5 minutes will do, 3 will do, 1 will do, if it is honest. Give us this day our daily bread is a prayer for this manna of presence. Receive fresh, not stored. Between these pauses, life will present its old pictures. A pain will speak. A rumor of loss will knock. An image of death will strut like a newsboy. Answer once, not as a fighter, not as a debater, simply as one awake. I am not in the physical. I am, not I am in. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Then stop. No more words. Return to the hush within, even if you are walking down a hallway. A breath will do. A turning of the face within will do. Resist not evil is not passivity. It is refusal to arm an image with your worship. Be still and know. Let the fear find no altar. In your relations, carry the same law. I never give human advice. I do not try to fix, persuade, or control. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. Non-interference keeps the channel clear. If a friend speaks trouble, I listen with compassion, but I do not set mind to molding outcomes. Don't ever tamper with a cosmic law because it is a double-edged sword. If you employ prayer to bend a person or grasp a result, the recoil is built into the act. As you sow, so shall ye reap. I wait. If a word rises with the click, I give it. If silence is the word, I keep it. The Father within doeth the works. And now see how this touches your pocketbook and your calendar. When I want nothing you have, and you want nothing I have, competition ends and security appears. This is not romantic, it is law. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Want is the worship of lack. Oneness is sufficiency. When worship returns to one, what we call supply ceases to be a contest and becomes a circulation. We find ourselves sharing without tally and receiving without pride, because there is no private storehouse, only the river of I am. Give, and it shall be given unto you, not as barter, but as the nature of flow in one. Here is a practical cue for the day. Watch for grasping. Time am I clutching hours as if life were in them. Health am I grasping at a sensation as if identity were in it. Outcome am I fastening hope to a picture. The moment you feel that clutch, stop inside, lay it down with the mantra, Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things, and be still. Take no thought for your life. In that instant of surrendered oneness, you are absent from the body and thought and present with the Lord, and the law begins to evidence itself. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. In that oneness, right action, right timing, right provision appear as byproduct, not as prey captured by will. This is how deathless life walks in ordinary hours. A few pauses, honestly surrendered, a single truthful answer to fear, a steadfast non-interference in love, a quiet refusal to worship what can be counted. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. Perfect love casteth out fear. I and my Father are one. I am not in the physical. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. And I rest there until even the smallest task is done as witness that life is I am. When fear falls, love stops asking for permission. Not romance, law. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, my neighbor is not other, not a rival, not a stranger. In oneness, neighbor is the radiance of the same I am. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. How could it be otherwise? If the self is one, the habit of I and mine was built on the God called lack. It bred haste and hoarding and suspicion. But when worship returns to one, the spring appears in the desert, and sharing is simply how water behaves when the blockage is removed. You have watched this in a household when fear loosens. The pantry opens and no one counts the slices. The clock is set down and meals lengthen into conversations. What changed? Supply, not necessarily. What changed was worship. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Want is fear codified. Fear is want worshipped. And war is want weaponized. No, no. Wars require a belief in lack and a belief in separate selves defending separate storehouses. But in I am, there is no private storehouse. There is the river of one. So we cease to take. We cooperate. We design. We build. We tend not as competitors protecting altars, but as stewards witnessing law. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Listen to the litany that dissolves the marketplace's shouting. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. In my oneness with God, I find my joy. In my oneness with God, I find my fulfillment. Say it until the impulse to reach into another's pocket fades, until the lust to possess another's praise grows quiet. Then watch how doors open with no pushing, how labors line up without lash or bribe. There is no fear in love. But perfect love casteth out fear. And with fears casting out, the hand unclenches and becomes a hand again, one that can give, one that can receive. The golden rule is not a local custom. It is cosmic law speaking in many tongues. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, yes. And in the older scriptures, by different names, the same law stands, as within one, so among all. Universal, because it is. Principle, not preference. Violate it, and you meet the mathematics of your own act. Honor it, and you meet the harvest of your own sowing. As you sow, so shall you reap. This is not reward or punishment. It is sequence in one. Carry this into civic hours with humility. Let the Father within bless through me. I am merely the instrument. God is the actor and the doer and the beer. I never give human advice. I do not impose will. I do not press my plans upon persons or nations. I show up. I listen. I serve. And I refrain from tampering with law. If a word rises with the click, I give it. If silence is the word, I keep it. And as fearlessness matures, love of neighbor ceases to be an effort and becomes our native climate, because sufficiency is found in one. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. In that grace, competition ends and community flowers as the simple presence of God shared. Now we seal not with effort, not with many words, but with a hush that needs no management. Sit as you are. Let the body be merely an unnoticed garment. Remove it from thought. Desire nothing. There is nothing to get. There is only God being God. Be still and know that I am God. Wait in receptivity until the click, quiet union, without words, arrives of itself. Do not try to fetch it. Do not time it. If it comes as what has ever been. If it does not seem to come, it is already here. For presence is presence. Take no thought. God is the actor. I am merely the instrument. In this desireless resting, the divine flow acts peace without cause, clarity without argument, love without an opposite. Now let identity speak itself, as it has always been. I am that I am. I am not in the physical. No surgeon has ever yet found any me inside of a body. I and my Father are one. I and my Father are one. My conscious oneness with God constitutes my oneness with all spiritual being and idea. Therefore, I do not reach. I recognize. I do not beg. I bear witness. All that the Father hath is mine, and hear it with humility flowing right up through here, not as possession, as presence, not as pride, as praise. God is the doer and the beer. I am the transparency through which the one beholds its own. Now the refrain that finishes fear's last whisper. Death ends a belief, not life. Say it softly. Death ends a belief, not life. Again quieter. Death ends a belief, not life. Let it fall still further until it dissolves into the wordless knowing. I am the resurrection and the life. O death, where is thy sting? Absent from the body, present with the Lord. Not travel recognition, not departure identity. Let the phrase slip beneath the surface and leave it there, like a stone resting in a clear river. We close as we began, with grace alone. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let it be breath. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let it be heartbeat. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. Let it be the password that opens no door but the one within. Thy grace is my sufficiency in all things. In this grace, I want nothing, I fear nothing, I defend nothing, because I am in oneness, and oneness is, I am perfect love casteth out fear. In my oneness with God, I find my completeness. In my oneness with God, I find my security. In my oneness with God, I find my peace. And now we release it all, not as loss, as fulfillment. No holding, no forcing, no bargaining, only gratitude, the quiet shining of acknowledgement. And so it is, and I thank you.